On January 15, 1974, the Otero family in Wichita, Kansas, met a tragic end at the hands of Dennis Rader, who later became known as the BTK Killer, an acronym for bind, torture, kill. On that fateful morning, Rader gained entry to the Otero home when one of the children opened the door to let the dog out. Once inside, he tied up the family members and held them at gunpoint. Realizing they could identify him, he made the harrowing decision to kill them. Joseph Otero and his wife Julie were found lifeless in their bedroom. 11-year-old Josephine was discovered hanging in the basement, while 9-year-old Joseph JRB was found dead in another room. This was the gruesome beginning of Rader's infamous killing spree. In October 1974, Rader left a letter in an engineering textbook at the Wichita Public Library detailing the Otero murders in graphic detail and signing it with the initials BTK for bind, torture, kill. This marked the start of his taunting communications with the media and law enforcement. Recently, authorities have named Rader a prime suspect in other unsolved cases, including the 1976 disappearance of Cynthia Kinney and the 1990 murder of Shauna Beth Garber. Investigations have continued, uncovering potential new evidence from his former property.
Dennis Rader had a fixation, an obsession that would soon escalate into unspeakable horror. His eyes fixated on a new Hispanic family, the Oteros, who had recently moved into a quiet corner house on Edgemoor. On that fateful day, January 15, 1974, just after 8 a.m., Rader made his move. Sneaking into the Oteros' backyard, he severed the phone line, cutting off any chance of escape. For a brief moment, doubt flickered in Rader's mind. Could he go through with it? But the darkness within him prevailed, and with cold determination, he pressed on. In mere moments, the lives of 4 innocent individuals were irrevocably altered. The Otero family became the first victims in a string of killings that would grip Wichita in fear for decades to come. The BTK Killer had claimed his first victims, and Dennis Rader had crossed a line from which there would be no turning back. The Otero family, unsuspecting and innocent, became the first victims of Dennis Rader's twisted desires. For BTK, selecting his prey was like a sick game of trolling for potential projects. One day, while casually walking, Rader spotted Julie and Josephine Otero. Without hesitation, he gathered his hit kit and headed straight to their house, driven by his dark impulses. Upon arrival, Rader's meticulously planned murder began to unravel. Joseph Otero, unexpectedly home, forced him to quickly take control of the situation, brandishing a gun and concocting a chilling lie. With the family subdued, Rader's savagery knew no bounds. He forced them to lie face down, their fate sealed by his twisted intentions. Joseph Otero's life ended abruptly as Rader tightened the cord around his neck, extinguishing any chance of escape. Julie Otero faced a desperate struggle for survival, but Rader's persistence ultimately silenced her forever. Joseph Otero met his demise next, suffocated and strangled by Rader's merciless hands. As the young boy took his last breaths, Rader callously watched, reveling in the horror he inflicted. For Josephine Otero, there was no mercy. Rader led her to the basement, where he callously ended her life, leaving her hanging from a pipe with a noose around her neck. In a final act of depravity, Rader defiled her remains, leaving behind a chilling reminder of his monstrous deeds. After the unspeakable horrors inflicted upon the Otero family, Rader callously cleaned up, taking belongings and memories as souvenirs of his heinous acts. With the family car as his getaway vehicle, Rader callously abandoned it, leaving behind only traces of his evil deeds before disappearing into the shadows, leaving a community shattered by his brutality. Charlie, Carmen, and Danny miraculously survived the attack by sheer luck. They were not at home when Dennis Rader, the BTK Killer, struck their family. Whether it was attending classes or being elsewhere, they were spared the tragic fate that befell their parents and siblings. It was a stroke of fortune that allowed them to escape the horrors of that day and live to tell the tale. Dennis Lynn Rader, born March 9, 1945, earned infamy as the notorious BTK Killer, a name he coined for himself, symbolizing his chilling method of operation: bind, torture, kill. Operating between 1974 and 1991, Rader terrorized the communities of Wichita and Park City, Kansas, claiming the lives of at least 10 individuals. While he occasionally targeted men and children, his primary victims were women. Rader's modus operandi was both methodical and sadistic. He would often bind his victims, using items found in their own homes, before suffocating them with plastic bags or manually strangling them with ligatures. But his depravity didn't end there. Rader took perverse souvenirs from his female victims, including underwear, licenses, and personal items, as twisted mementos of his heinous acts. Adding to the horror, Rader taunted law enforcement and media outlets with cryptic letters detailing the grisly details of his crimes. After a chilling 13-year hiatus, Rader resumed his correspondence in 2004, ultimately leading to his arrest in 2005. Facing overwhelming evidence, Rader pleaded guilty, receiving 10 consecutive life sentences for his monstrous deeds. Today, Dennis Rader resides in the confines of the El Dorado Correctional Facility, serving out his sentence, but the scars of his crimes continue to haunt the communities he terrorized, serving as a chilling reminder of the depths of human depravity. Despite his dark inclinations, Rader presented a facade of normalcy, marrying Paula Dietz in 1971 and fathering 2 children. He pursued education, earning an associate degree and later a Bachelor of Science degree from Wichita State University. Rader held various jobs, including working for the Coleman Company and ADT Security Services, where he installed security alarms, sometimes for homeowners concerned about the BTK killings. Later, he became a dog catcher and compliance officer in Park City, where he exhibited overzealous and harassing behavior, particularly towards single women. In 2004, hungry for attention, Rader resurfaced as BTK after learning about a book being written on the killings. His arrest in 2005 led to his wife's emergency divorce. Despite the horrors he inflicted, his daughter, Carrie, has forgiven him, struggling to reconcile her father with the BTK killer, recalling her childhood as a normal American family.
Bind, torture, kill. That's the horrifying mantra of the heinous serial killer who became known simply as BTK. Today in a Daily Mail TV exclusive, the man who lost his parents, a brother, and a sister to BTK. Charlie Otero is speaking out about the fiend who killed his family, how the gruesome images of their death still haunt him, and how he's finally coming to terms with such unthinkable tragedy and loss.
It felt like having your chest ripped open and your heart pulled out.
Charlie Otero is describing the unbearable pain he suffered upon seeing the bodies of his father and mother murdered in cold blood by Wichita's BTK Killer. Arriving home from school January 15th, 1974, changed the then 15-year-old's life forever.
I went through the back door in the yard, and my dog was outside. He was never outside. So I said, Lucky, what's going on? How are you, boy? You know, let's go inside. I opened up the door of the kitchen and I yelled out, is anybody home? And one of my siblings yelled out, Charlie, come quick. Mom and Dad are playing a bad trick on us. I ran down the hall, opened the door and looked and saw my mom and my dad there. My dad's tongue was halfway bit off. He had a belt around his neck. My mom was beaten. Her nails were busted up from what I remember.
The sibling who called out to Charlie was his younger brother, Danny. A sister, Carmen, also arrived home to the gruesome scene. But where were their youngest brother and sister, 11-year-old Josie and 9-year-old Joey?
So where's Joey? Where's Josie? Bring him to me. Bring him to me. Don't let him see all this stuff. And eventually they brought in a chaplain and told me that Joey and Josie were in the house and they were dead also. And it was like my heart getting ripped out again.
Charlie, Danny, and Carmen were sent to live with a guardian in New Mexico. But BTK continued terrorizing Wichita, adding 6 more victims between 1974 and 1991. The serial killer then went underground until 2004, when, for the 30th anniversary of the Otero murders, he resurfaced to taunt police. Believing BTK responsible for the Otero killings, police asked Charlie to bait the killer in the media.
I was trying to get BTK to come after me. I kept telling him, I'm here, I'm there, you can have me, come and get me.
As that cat and mouse game continued, it was BTK's own slip-up, sending a floppy disk with more taunts to a Wichita TV station that did him in. In February of 2005, data embedded in the disk led police straight to Dennis Rader, a one-time Boy Scout leader and president of his church council. DNA evidence found that the Otero murder scene confirmed Rader as the serial killer.
My family's murders were the first murders where DNA was collected.
Yes, you guys know. What else? Say who you are. BTK. You're BTK.
Rader confessed to 10 brutal killings, including the Oteros. Charlie, who admits suffering from decades of PTSD and survivor's guilt, says at first he was after retribution.
I attended the court hearings with the sole purpose of getting my hands on Rader and exacting revenge for my family.
But after reconnecting with his faith, Charlie says everything changed.
My need for revenge, my dream of a lifetime of getting my hands on the killer went away.
So, living back in Wichita, 45 years after those horrific murders, has Charlie finally found peace?
And I've embraced Wichita as my home now, which before I moved here, Wichita was the last place on earth I wanted to be or go. I hated this place, and now I call it home.
You can read more about the BTK Killer in a new book out now by Dennis Rader's daughter, Carrie Rawson. It's entitled A Serial Killer's Daughter, and it chronicles Carrie's emotional journey after learning the dad that she knew and loved was a cold-blooded killer.
In 1977 in Sedgwick County, Kansas, that you unlawfully killed Shirley Vian maliciously, willfully, deliberately, and with premeditation by strangulation, inflicting injuries from which she did die on March 17, 1977. Can you tell me what you did on that day?
As before, Vian was a
Actually, on that one, she was completely random. There was actually someone across from Dylan's was a potential target. It was called Project Green, I think. I had project numbers assigned to it. And that particular day, I drove to Dylan's, parked in the parking lot, watched this particular residence, and then got out of the car and walked over to it. It's probably the police report, the address. I don't remember the address now. Knocked, nobody answered it. So I was all keyed up, so I just started going through the neighborhood. I'd been through the neighborhood before. I kind of knew a little of the layout of the neighborhood. I've been through the back alleys, knew where some certain people lived. While I was walking down Hydraulic, I met a young boy and asked him if he could ID some pictures. Kind of was a rust, I guess, or roost, as you call it, and kind of feel it out. And saw where he went, and I went to another address and knocked on the door. Nobody opened the door, so I just noticed where he went and went to that house, and we went from there.
Now, you call these projects, were these sexual fantasies also?
Potential hits. In my world, that's what I call them.
So
They're
you
called
went,
projects, hits.
all right, and why did you have these potential hits? Was this to gratify some sexual interest? Or?
Yes, sir. I had a lot of them, so it's just, if one didn't work out, I just moved to another one.
All right. So, as I'm to understand it, then on the 17th of March, 1977, you saw this little boy go into a residence, and you tried another residence. No one was there. You tried another residence. No one was there, so you went to the residence with the little boy.
And I watched where he went.
What happened then?
After I tried this one residence, nobody came to the door. I went to this house where he went in, knocked on the door, and told him I was a private detective. Showed him a picture that I had just showed the boy, and asked him if they could ID the picture. And at that time, I had the gun here, and I just kind of forced myself in. I just walked in, just opened the door and walked in, and then pulled a pistol.
What gun? What pistol?
357 Magnum.
So you only had one gun with the pistol?
Yes, sir.
What happened then?
I told Mrs. Spyan that I had a problem with sexual fantasies, that I was going to tie her up, and that I might have to tie the kids up, and that she would cooperate with me at that time. We went back. She was extremely nervous. I think she even smoked a cigarette. And we went back to one of the back areas of the porch, explained to her that I had done this before. And I think at that point in time, I think she was sick because she had her night robe on. And I think if I remember right, she had been sick. And I think she came out of the bedroom when I went in the house. So anyway, we went back to her bedroom, and I proceeded to tie the kids up. And they started crying and got real upset. So I said, "Oh, this is not going to work." So we moved them to the bathroom. She helped me, and then I tied the doors shut. We put some toys and blankets and odds and ends in there for the kids, make them as comfortable as we could. We tied one of the bathroom doors shut so they couldn't open it, and she went back and helped me shove the bed up against the other bathroom door. And then I proceeded to tie her up. She got sick, threw up, got her a glass of water, comforted her a little bit, and then I went ahead and tied her up, and then put a bag over her head and strangled her.
All right. Was this a plastic bag also?
Yes, sir. I think it was, but I could be wrong on that.
Okay, you put a bag.
It was something. I'm sure it was a plastic bag. Yeah.
You say you put a bag over her head and strangled her. What did you strangle her with?
I think on that I had tied her legs to the bedpost and worked up with the rope all the way up, and then what I had left over I looped over her neck.
All right, so you used this rope to strangle her?
Yes, I think it's the same one that I tied her body with.
What happened then?
Well, the kids were really banging on the door, hollering, and screaming, and then the telephone rang, and they had talked about earlier that the neighbor was going to check on them, so I cleaned everything up real quick and got out of there, left, and went back into my car.
Now, when you say you cleaned everything...
Well, I mean, put my stuff... I had a briefcase, whatever I had laying around, the ropes, tape, cords, I threw that in there, whatever, that I had that I brought in the house.
Had you brought that to the bride residence also?
Now, there is some... I think it was some basic stuff, but I don't remember bringing total stuff like I did to some of the others.
Was this a kit that you had prepared?
Yeah, yes, I called my hit kit.
All right, sir. You left the Bayan residence, and had you parked your vehicle near
Yeah,
there?
and it's still in the same parking lot there, Dillon's, at Hydraulic and, what is that? Harry? Lincoln and Hydraulic.
All right, in count 7, it is claimed that